the brother of the Rebbe, Rabbi Yisroel, Aryeh, Leib, Schneerson. There aren't really too many pictures out there of him. The Rebbe had two brothers, our Rebbe. One brother, his name was Doivber, he was killed by the Nazis in 1941 or 42. And then another brother named Yisroel Aryeh Leib. Yisroel Aryeh Leib was like the Rebbe. The three boys growing up all together. There were three, Rebbe Zechana and Rebbe Levi Yitzchak had three children. And she used to call herself saying, I have beautiful mebel. Mebel means furniture in Hebrew. Not Hebrew, in Yiddish. Mebel. She says, I have beautiful mebel, furniture, which is my three sons. One is Mem, the Rebbe, Mendel. Beis is Berol. Lamed is Label. Three boys were, of course, very, very brilliant. They used to have competitions between each other. Who could learn more languages faster? They'd be learning with their father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, who was a very big Mekubal in Kabbalah. Rabbi Zechana would describe how there were many times they would be learning and there would be debates between Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father, and their two sons, Mendel, the Rebbe, and Rabbi Yisrael Leib. She would call him Label. And at times, the Rebbe's father explained it according to Kabbalah. The Rebbe explained it according to Chassidus, and Label explained the idea according to Nigla. But they could debate, and sometimes debates would last for weeks and for hours each day. The Label would speak in a lot of times in a way of Chakira. Chakira means, I guess, Musar. It's sort of a rationalistic type of view. One time they had a very long debate between Ma and Ban. What are the levels of Ma and Ban? After a few weeks of debating, Label said, so far we've only discussed just the outside, that room. We haven't yet got to the actual Ma and Ban yet. He was much more extroverted, you could say. The Rebbe was very quiet. The Rebbe would not speak unnecessarily at all to anyone. That was in general the Rebbe's way of always was like that. But he was much more of a friendlier, outgoing type of person. He grew up, he didn't go to a regular cheder, he was taught at home by his father. He went to a one-on-one melamed. When he would be learning, Rabbi Leib would be learning, he would be so engrossed, he wouldn't notice at all what is going on. One time, Rebbe Simchana had a guest come into the house, and she says she wanted to show off her sons. And she says, "Look, I want to show you my son Label and my other son, and the Rebbe. I want to show them to you." And she walked in and she started making noise, and the Label was learning, and there was no interruption. She went and she tapped him on the shoulder, nothing. She pulled his scarf. He had no reaction whatsoever. He was busy. He was engrossed in his learning. He was by the Frierdiker Rebbe several times. The Frierdiker Rebbe one time said a very deep mimer, and whoever said it either couldn't follow along or they were completely blown away by the depth of the mimer. And the Rebbe's brother was not shocked or surprised at all. Another time, the Frierdiker Rebbe said a mimer which seemed to be much more of a simple mimer for Balabatim. And the Rebbe's brother, Reb Label, was hugely impressed. And he says, such a mimer, wow, such a mimer, let's take mashke, let's make a Chaim for such a mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe. They thought he would explain what impressed him, but he didn't explain anything. He sat and he took mashke, and the more he drank, the quieter he became, and he started crying more and more. And the only words he said was, such a mimer, such a mimer. In the end, he just said one more line at the end of the whole night. What is all the haskala worth when there's no das? Not sure exactly what that means. He was born in the year 1906. There was a few years between every one of the siblings. The Rebbe is 1902, the Berol in 1904, and Rabbi Tzvi Leib was born in 1906, also in Nikolaev. He was born Chaf Aleph Iyar, 1906. He was named after his grandfather, Rabbi Yisroel Leib Yanovsky. He was 3 years old. He already started learning Mishnayos by heart. At the age of 3, he was able to be tested on many Mishnayos. There was a certain person who lived in Yekaterinoslav, the city, where the Rebbe's father was a rabbi. And he was totally unreligious whatsoever. This person was in college, and I'm not sure exactly how he got connected to the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Yitzchak, but from there, he became very devoted to the Rebbe's father. His name was Mordechai Garari. And eventually, he became a tremendously edel, a tremendously frum person. And he was in college, this is in the 1930s under communism, and he would, in college, not come on Shabbos, always wear yarmulke and a beard. And although these were grounds for arrest, but he was such an advanced, smart college student that they sort of overlooked what he was doing. He was a very popular person. His name was Mark Garari. He got married. Leib Yitzchak was Misader Kedushin in his wedding. He had one son. While his wife was pregnant with their first child, an only child, one time he went swimming in the Dnieper River by the city of Dnepropetrovsk, and unfortunately he drowned. And he did not get to see his only son. His name was Mordechai, who was named after the father. Baruch Hashem, over the later years, became a Rav in Crown Heights, passed away during COVID. Mordechai Garari was a big Rav in Crown Heights. Now, the Rebbe Tzvi writes that at the funeral of this Mark Garari, the Rebbe Leib Yitzchak spoke, and there's a very large crowd because he was popular in the university. And he said that she never saw her husband, Rebbe Leib Yitzchak, speak so passionately about how he devoted his entire life to Yiddishkeit, and he started not working on Shabbos, and therefore everyone should do something for his neshama. Stop going to shul on Shabbos. Stop going to university on Shabbos. Start going to shul on Shabbos. Stop eating not kosher food. And to say all of this in public with such passion was, of course, unheard of under communism, where they're going around closing shuls, arresting rabbanim. Eventually, the Rebbe's father would be arrested and die in prison. And there was a huge crowd, and she wanted to say in the message to her husband to stop. But she saw her husband was in such a passion that she wasn't able to stop. She wasn't able to stop Leib Yitzchak. And Baruch Hashem, she says there were no negative repercussions from the story. Now, this person who passed away, his name is Mordechai Garari. Mark Garari, now that he passed away, and the Rabbi Tzvi Leib, he had friends who were on the wrong side of the law, you could say. Doesn't take much under communist Russia, communist Ukraine, same idea. He had friends who were, they were arrested, and he realized that sooner or later, they're going to come for him as well. And he had to escape. So he took the papers of his friend, Mordechai Garari, Mark Garari, and he used those papers to leave Russia because the name Schneerson was a no-no. This is only several years after the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, sentenced to death. Miraculously, with international pressure, Frierdiker Rebbe was saved. But they were arresting anybody with any connection to Schneerson, with the name Schneerson. He could be called the Schneersonite. So he couldn't leave Russia with the name Schneerson. So he used the name Garari. So from then on, he would use a legal name, Mark Garari. And he managed to leave Russia, and he once again met up with his brother. This is in 1930 or 31. He met up with his brother, the Rebbe, in Berlin, and he met up with the Frierdiker Rebbe again, but he didn't make it to the Rebbe's wedding in 1928. There is a beautiful Rishima. If anyone knows what Rishimus is, Rishimus is the Rebbe's personal notebooks. She wrote for himself. And I think there are 6 Rishimus, which the Rebbe wrote often before he became Rebbe. And they were discovered after Gimel Tammuz, and they were printed. There's one quite amazing Rishima. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells that then was his new son-in-law, which was a Rebbe. And he tells him a very interesting story. This entry is on Hey Tevis, 1927, I think, or 1928. The Rishima of Aryeh Leib. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells the Rebbe that many things are. The night of Hey Tevis Tafresh Peites, 1928. The Rebbe got married just about 3 weeks before this. The Rebbe is a new son-in-law of the Frierdiker Rebbe. They are then currently in Riga, Latvia. And the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him that I had a vision last night. And he says, first of all, you should give me a kiss. And then let me tell you the vision I had last night. So the Rebbe gave the Frierdiker Rebbe a kiss, and he says, last night I saw my father, the Rebbe Rashab, and he was in a very, very good mood, very happy in the vision. And he says, I've not seen my father so clearly since Tafresh Samaches, since 1908. I mean, the Rebbe Rashab passed away in the year 1920. In the year Tafresh Samaches, 1908, he was still alive. And he says, I have not seen his face so clear since then. And he says, I saw many lights of a big city. I don't know exactly. There are many lights in a big city. I don't know which city it was. And I saw you there, and I saw your brother there. We saw your Leib. And he says that my father told me, who are these people? And then before I could answer, my father said, I recognize them. There was one time that the Rebbe Rashab said that he has the Rabbi Yisroel Leib, the label has a head of the Tzemach Tzedek's cup, meaning the head of the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek, who wrote many Shalos Shuvas, was a tremendous guy. And he says, I want to give you regards from your brother. He says, the Rebbe Rashab said a certain maimer, and he says, you could tell your brother about it. At this point, the Yisroel Leib was still in Russia. He was stuck in Russia. But the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying how he saw a vision of how he was there with the Rebbe Rashab at a maimer. Rabbi Yisroel Leib, when he was a little child, he would take a box of matches and he would say, look, you see every one of these matches? This one comes from Atzmos, this one comes from Atzilus, this one comes from Bria. And he would list off different levels of Elikus of godliness, saying where each one comes from. Frierdiker Rebbe started in Russia an organization for working Chabad young people, young men, to learn Torah after hours. So he called it Tiferes Bachurim. So he was involved in the Tiferes Bachurim. The Frierdiker Rebbe very much liked the Yisroel Leib, One time, when he had a Yechidus with the Frierdiker Rebbe, he asked the Frierdiker Rebbe a question in Chassidus, and the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I can't answer it. He said, and he begged, and he says, this is not for you, the answer. He came out from the Yechidus crying and crying. Another later Yechidus, when he came in, he did not mention this question at all. The Frierdiker Rebbe turned around to him and answered his question. Later on, Rabbi Tzvi Leib explained that the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted I should be a Leib nishbar. I should be a broken heart. I should be humble, broken-hearted. Therefore, in the beginning, he didn't answer me. But once I worked on myself, so then I was able to receive the explanation from the Frierdiker Rebbe. Well, he left Russia in 1930 with the papers of Mark Harari, and he came to Berlin, but he kept the name Mark Harari for the rest of his life, whether he was in London or Eretz Yisrael. He came to Berlin. He went to university in Berlin for 3 years. He became sick with typhus over there, and the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin helped him, to nurse him back to health. It was later on when the Nazis came to power, and the Rebbe and Rebbetzin left Germany, but Yisroel Leib was still in Germany, and they needed papers to get him out. So the Rebbetzin, Chaim traveled back to Germany. In the beginning, the Rebbe wanted to travel back to Germany to help get him out. And the Rebbetzin said, it's too dangerous for you. You look like a frum Jew with a beard. Too dangerous for you to travel back to Nazi Germany. But she herself traveled back to Germany and got the papers. She went into some of the Nazi offices, and they said, what's your name? Schneerson. What's your maiden name? Schneerson. What's your father's maiden name? Father's name Schneerson. Mother's maiden name Schneerson. Said this sounds very fishy. But they told her, we're going to conquer Paris, France. And when we come there, don't worry, we'll already take care of you. We'll get you then. Baruch Hashem, this is in 1933. The Rebbetzin Chaim was able to get Rebbe's brother to be able to leave Germany, and in the beginning he came to France to join the Rebbe. Short time later, he went up to Eretz Yisrael. He had to go back to Germany in order to get papers, get legal papers, but already was a German, under Nazi control. Again, Rebbe Chaim went and got the papers for him in Germany. We do see, more recently, some letters were printed from the Rebbe to his parents in Russia, how the Rebbe was trying to find the shliach for his brother. In 1935, Rabbi Tzvi Leib went to Eretz Yisrael. He lived in Tel Aviv. Here's his houses in Shalom Aleichem Yaakov. So happy that you're joining us. So here's the houses in Tel Aviv and Liverpool where he lived. That's Liverpool, England. Tel Aviv. What's the address? I'm not sure.
I'm standing in front of number 2, Yochanan Sandler Street, corner Balfour. This was the building, either this one or the next one. One is number 2, one is 2A, that the Rebbe's brother, Yisroel Aryeh Leib, actually lived here on the 2nd floor. And this is a very old building that means he probably was here at the end of the 30s into the 40s. And you could see it's an old building. He lived here. And I showed you in the first clip where he worked, which is only about 4, 5, 6 blocks from here. Thank you. This is a beautiful area. Thank you.
That's his place in Tel Aviv. He lived in Liverpool, England later on. We'll get to all these stops later on.
Sandler. And look at.
For a short time, the Rebbe's brother had a clothing store in Tel Aviv.
I'm standing here at number 3, Nachlas Binyamin in Tel Aviv. This is the building. See the old facade over here. Look at the old facade. This is where they say the Rebbe's brother, Rabbi Yisroel Aryeh Leib, had a store over here, somewhere in this building. And it's he was here from the 30s and through the 40s, and he worked over here. And he also worked later as a librarian and in a bookstore. But this is the this is not today's store, but it was a store in the past.
So we'll get back to all of this soon, Mirza Hashem. So he moved to Eretz Yisrael in 1935. Is actually when he met his wife. He got married in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe's mother writes. This is after the Rebbe's father was arrested and he was beaten and sent away to Kazakhstan, to Chile. And one day, it's a very difficult life. There's no food, nothing to eat, nothing to anything. And suddenly she sees one day her husband coming, smiling, happy. What happened? And he says, I just got a message, a telegram, saying that our son Leib got married in Eretz Yisrael, got married in Israel. And that was a little simcha that they had while they're over there. He was in Eretz Yisrael for a while. He was in Eretz Yisrael from 1935 till about 1949. He was a tremendously wise person. Let's see, I'm just going to try find it for you in a moment. His, one of his papers that he wrote. But it seems like he never really had much of a parnasa, much of a livelihood. The Rebbe would try sending people to help him. He was connected with some of the Chassidim over there in Tel Aviv, and not all of them, but some of them. Him and Menachem Goldschmidt, a friend of his from a young child, they would be sitting and they would be learning for many, many hours together. And he said they used to learn in a very unique way. They used to sit down across from each other and not talk to each other. A very unique way of learning. Now, what exactly happened that he left Eretz Yisrael to go to Liverpool, England? He went to the University of Liverpool, either to learn or to become a professor. What exactly? His family joined him and they went to stay in Eretz Yisrael. And what exactly happened? There's different girsais, different versions of it. One version of it is that there was one of the early members of the Knesset. His name was Yonah Kesseh. And he knew Rebbe Leib, the Rebbe's brother, knew him very well because they grew up together in Yekaterinoslav. And he told the head of the prime minister, his name is David Ben Gurion, he told him about his friend Rebbe Leib, and he says, I would suggest you take someone like him and let the state sponsor him and let him learn outside of Israel in certain fields that they wanted them to learn. So the government was one who paid for his ticket and to go to London, to go to Liverpool. When he was in Eretz Yisrael, he didn't have a major parnasa. He had a bookstore at one point. He had a clothing store at one point. One time he meets his friend Yonah Kesseh, who's a member of Knesset, meets him on the street, and he says, "How are you doing? How's your work going?" And he says, he looked down at the ground and he says, "I sent to the British Atomic Commission. I sent them a long paper that I wrote, and they gave me an invitation to come and visit them based on this paper." So he came there and they accepted him. So he was a member of the faculty and he was also learning at the same time. And he never went officially to learn these topics. So what exactly did he work on over there? So some of the things he said are either classified. Maybe he worked. It looks like David Ben Gurion was trying many different ways to get the atomic bomb for Eretz Yisrael. Maybe it was connected to that. Because at one point, the Aryeh Leib also worked in the Weizmann Institute in Eretz Yisrael. Yeshaya Sher, who's also a member of the Knesset, he says that he said openly in 1969 that Ben Gurion sent the Rebbe's brother, Aryeh Leib. He was one of the important people that he sent to England in regards to trying to get an atomic bomb. So seemingly that's the reason what comes out after all this, why he suddenly went to England after all these years. But he was only in England for 2 years, from 1950 or end of 49 till the year 1952, where he suddenly passed away. We don't know of any research or any papers in regards to any atomic energy that he did. Most of it we still don't know. What he did in Machon Weizmann, we still don't know what he did. Could be these are private things. We don't know exactly what happened. There is a very interesting video of Professor Rosenblum. I'll bring it up over here. It's a Farbrengen of the Rebbe in the year 1975. When I was in yeshiva in Toronto, we used to go visit Professor Paul Rosenblum. He was, I don't even know what type of mathematician, but some big type of mathematician. He was a Baal Tshuva, Mekuravim, a Mekurav of the Fellers in Minnesota. The Rebbe gave Rabbi Feller and Mrs. Feller a special shlichus in Minnesota to reach out to the university professors, the university faculty. And after Rabbi Yisroel Leib passed away at a very young age, right? He passed away in 1906, passed away in 1952. It means he was 46 about when he passed away. The Rebbe decided to keep it secret from his mother that the brother passed away, because she already went through so much hardship. She was with her husband when he was arrested, and when her husband passed away in Kazakhstan and Chile. Her other son, Beryl, got killed by the Nazis while they left him at home while she went to her husband. He was killed by the Nazis. She managed to, Baruch Hashem, escape Russia with false papers. The Rebbe brought her to America, and the Rebbe felt that it would be too much for his mother, for his mother to know that her son, Yisroel Leib, passed away. Now, he never saw his mother from the time he left Russia. For 29 years, it seems like he never saw his mother, from 1930 and onwards, because he was first in Europe. When she left Russia, he was already in Eretz Yisrael, and she came to America in 1947. At that point, he was still in Eretz Yisrael. He came to England in 1950, and he was planning at one point going to see his mother in America, but that never happened. Passed away suddenly from a heart attack. He used to write letters to his mother. He used to send pictures of his children. And when he passed away, the Rebbe said the Rebbe did not want his mother to find out that her son passed away. And to do that, in order to accomplish that goal, the Rebbe did many deceptions from his mother. Every single, and my mother's father, Beryl Yunik, he was very involved. 1952, the Rebbe got him involved in doing many of these things. Some of the things that happened were that the Rebbe had a custom, as long as his mother was living, till she passed away in 1965, to visit his mother every single day. During the time that the Rebbe was sitting Shiva for his brother, the Rebbe would visit his mother every single day as regular. But the Rebbe didn't want to spend much time there because the Rebbe was sitting Shiva, and she shouldn't notice anything she's very perceptive. She shouldn't notice anything untoward. So he would walk to visit his mother, and he would tell my grandfather, wait about at the corner, there was a payphone, wait about 2 minutes till he'll walk in, and then call her house on the phone. And so that's what he would do. He would stand by the corner, and as soon as the Rebbe would walk in, she lived on a third floor of a building. The Rebbe as soon as Rebbe walked into his mother's house, he would call from the corner, and the Rebbe would tell her, "Oh, the phone is ringing. Speak, speak on the phone. I'll see you tomorrow." So she picked up the phone, and he didn't know what to do. He put down, and he did that every single day. And Rebbe Zechana said something strange. Every single day, someone is calling me right when you walk in. Back then, shiva shoes, you can't wear leather shoes. The only shoes were sneakers, which were all white. No black sneakers, no other non-leather shoes. And he didn't want his mother to notice the shoes that he's wearing. So my grandfather took paint and he painted, or shoe polish, I think, and he painted the Rebbe's sneakers black, that the Rebbe Zechana should not notice. Another thing, any mail which came, the Rebbe would tell her grandfather, open up the mail and bring it to me first before. The Rebbe would always bring the mail up to his mother when he would visit her. And the Rebbe says, bring the mail to me and I'm going to go through it. I don't want anybody telling her the news that her son passed away. And the Rebbe instructed him even how to open up the letters. A letter that's sealed, you use steam, you can open it up. Later on, you could close it. And the Rebbe would make sure that nobody would inform his mother. The Mashpia in Montreal is Mitchell Meir Garari. He was walking with a friend of his. And he was a 12-year-old boy, but his father was Zalman Garari in the Rebbe's close circle. And so he's telling his friend that they're walking far down Eastern Parkway, close to Grand Army Plaza. He tells him, I have a secret to tell you. The Rebbe's brother passed away. And later on, his father, or later on that day, got a phone call. Basically, the Rebbe wanted to see him. And he says, you should tell your son to be more careful of what he says. How did the Rebbe know that two boys are having a conversation way down Eastern Parkway? I don't know. But the Rebbe's Ruach HaKodesh is not a question. So Rebbe Zechana did not find out. And there was one time, actually, Rebbe Zechana told my grandfather, he says, I'm very worried about my son. I don't know what's happening with him, and don't tell my son, don't tell the Rebbe, because I don't want to worry him. But from her diaries that were recently published, seems like she did not know her entire life. She told the Rebbe once, I have not received any letters from my son, from Yisroel Leib. What's happening with him? And a short while later, she received a letter from Yisroel Leib. It was actually the Rebbe who wrote the letter in his brother's handwriting. And I'll show you some copies of it. A couple of years ago, some copies came out. Here is where he's buried in Sfas. The Rebbe said he should be buried in Sfas. Many people go up to his caver today. Let's find where it is. There's Yisroel Leib over here in Sfas, in the same cemetery that Rizal is buried in. So here are some copies of letters that Rebbe Zechana received. Some from the Rebbe and some from the Yisroel Leib, and there's somewhere which is side-by-side comparison of their handwritings. I don't know how it was publicized, but a couple of years ago it was recently publicized. I'm not sure exactly where. Now, it's interesting. The Rebbe was always very private about his family. The Rebbe didn't talk much. Only in later years, the Rebbe started talking about his brother, and at even a later point, oh, here it is. Here is a copies. These are letters that Rebbe Zechana received. At one point, the Rebbe Zechana told my grandfather, she says, I received a letter from my son Leib, meaning a letter from the wife, Leib's wife, and then afterwards there will be a postscript from him. I received a letter from him that he's going to some classified job and he's not going to be able to write as often. So here are some of the Rebbe's handwritings where he would write to his mother, Rebbe Zechana, signing his brother's name. I think it's side-by-side comparison of his handwriting and the brother's and the Rebbe's handwriting. I think are side-by-side comparison, but they're quite similar. In the year Tashunun Aleph, 1991, the Rebbe, on the Yud Gimel year, the Rebbe said a Sikha, which is today. The Rebbe spoke about the significance of his brother Yisroel Leib. So 1991, many years later, almost 40 years after his brother passed away, first time the Rebbe really spoke about his brother in public. The Rebbe said, my brother was a very private individual, but since every Jew is connected to everyone else, therefore we could learn some lessons from him as well. First, his name is Yisroel. Yisroel is Jewish people, which is means you're connected to the Jewish people. Yisroel stands for Yesh Shishim Riboy Oisis La Torah. There's 600,000 letters of the Torah. There's 600,000 Jews who left Mitzrayim, and each person has a letter in the Torah. And so every Jew today is connected to one of those souls. Every Jew has a letter of the Torah, and the Torah gives life to every single Jew. Yisroel also comes from the word Li Rosh, or Sarisi Melikim. I have won over angels, I've prevailed over people, meaning that I go to war with others, and I win over them, I prevail over them. So it's a little bit different than the first thing. The first thing is Jews' connection to the Torah is Yisroel. Here, the second one, Yisroel, is fighting with others. So Jew has to realize, the answer is that we're always connected to the Torah. Everything we do must go according to the Torah. The ultimate goal is to apply the Torah into every single moment of your life. So not to separate oneself from the world in order to get closer to Torah, but to bring the Torah into every single aspect of the world. And sometimes you'll have to be sarisi. You have to have arguments, fights. Means that there's sometimes opposition stopping a Jew from trying to learn. It could be someone Esav, Lavan, Reisi, something or anything like that. It could be something spiritual, stopping a person from being connected to the Torah. But if you use every single thing in the world to connect to Torah, and you don't compromise on anything, then even the nations of the world will be sarisi. They will subjugate themselves to a Jew who keeps Torah. His second name was Aryeh. Aryeh means a lion. He says, heavy as person should be fierce as a lion. Gibor Ka'ari, to do the will of your Father in heaven. You have to, that's the second name, Leib. We can learn from there to, in every single thing, to do things with a very strong way, to go in the way of Hashem. His last name is Leib. Leib is Yiddish for lion. It also comes from the word Leib, which means heart. But it also has a Yud, which brings out the 10 kochos and nefesh, 10 powers of the soul. And it's a lot of times spelled with 2 Yuds, which is the 2 names, Yaakov and Yisrael. You bring out the higher level, Yisrael, and the lower level of Yaakov. He passed away on Yud Gimel Iyar. Yud Gimel is 13. Echad, like Hashem Echad, is a gematria of 13, which is the idea of revealing the oneness of Hashem. There was a certain family who named their son after Yisroel Leib, and they wrote it into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote back Shlita. I mean, I was very happy that they gave a name after his brother. His family and his children, it's very interesting. They went back, the Rebbe wrote to them what they need, what to support them. They went back to Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe did not want, I think, average Babachur families, community to be involved with them, to reach out to them, sort of give them their own space. There were only individuals who the Rebbe would send like on specific messages through them or other things through them. One of them was sent as a liaison to Washington, the embassy. And so the Rebbe was very personally involved. And when they had a baby boy, to make a bris, and speak pinyin haben, to send food for the menu, make a menu for food. They would stay in the Rebbe's house. Matter of fact, the Rebbe's niece one time picked up the Rebbe in a sports car, a red sports car. Everyone's Bachram by 770. You're seeing surprised to see the Rebbe coming out from a red sports car. Today, they live both in Eretz Yisrael. They're doctors, I think, both of them. 2 of the nephews of the Rebbe. They're very proud that they're the nephews of the Rebbe. These are Yisroel Aryeh Leib's children and grandchildren. So there's I'm just trying to find the video of Professor Paul Rosenblum. One second. I used to visit him when he was in the in like a assisted living when he was in Toronto. I used to put on tefillin with him. He was so happy that we will come. So he was originally in Minnesota. And he lived in Toronto for many years. I see over here, Paul Rosenblum. So here is in 1975. He actually passed, his yard site is on Lag BaOmer. Or at least his levaya is on Lag BaOmer. It's coming up nowadays. Because remember, on Lag BaOmer, we went straight from his levaya, and we went from there straight to the Lag BaOmer parade. I remember that. It's like a big contrast going from a levaya of Professor Rosenblum, Paul Rosenblum, saying he was buried in the Lubavitcher Cemetery and all, and from going straight from there to a big Lag BaOmer parade. Let me just bring it up on a video, a very interesting video, where he's by a video. Here, let me go back to share it. Back to the Zoom. Share. Okay. Let's do this over here. So the Rebbe gave a certain mathematical paper to Professor Paul Rosenblum to work on, and he tells the Rebbe it's very cryptic. I can't, I don't understand it at all. I can't finish it. So then the Rebbe tells him, I had a brother who passed away 10 years ago, and he was the one who wrote this paper, and I'll be very happy if you do it, and I will pay you for it personally. And if you could do it or supervise someone to do it, I'll be very happy. Then he realized, okay, Rebbe, I'll do it myself. What's interesting, this is 1975, this Fabrengen. The Rebbe's brother passed away in 1952. So why is the Rebbe saying my brother passed away 10 years ago? It's interesting because, as we said, the Rebbe kept his brother alive till 1965 in letters to his mother. So only after his mother passed away in 1965, it seems like the Rebbe is actually counting from his brother passed.
The paper that you sent me.
Yeah, the gem.
Yes.
What is your opinion about it?
It has material which is worth publishing.
What publishing?
It has some things in it which is worth publishing, but it needs some revision. It needs introduction. It needs references. The manuscript is not complete because it mentions some things which are not in the manuscript.
But he is deceased. The author
Oh,
that means if something can be done by someone else.
yes, but then someone like myself would have to do it, I suppose.
If there is someone that will do it for a big job, I'll be very glad to see someone capable can complete it, and then you maybe supervise his work.
See,
I don't know if you have time enough and more than this, your time is valuable. But if you can find someone who and I will gladly pay you, that will only supervise it, then I'll be very glad to do so as on a priority basis.
well, this is all you have from him. I see. Because you mentioned some other things.
But that's about it. Nothing left.
I see.
And he's dead 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Approximately.
I see. Well then, I can do it myself because I've been working in this before. I thought I might be of some use to it.
But it will be of use to me.
So,
I was not willing to tell you who is the author, not to influence you. That it is written by my brother.
I see.
I had a little brother, he was younger than I am, he is dead 10 years ago. And that is the only thing left of him.
I see. Evidently, he had to work independently and he didn't have any access to any library.
No.
That was obvious.
He was an independent character, was not willing to look in anything, to write all on his own. And only after that he was looking in a reference to someone has explained something.
I see.
He was very jealous about his independence. And because of that, the references are mounted and moved in the underneath.
I see.
But I'll be very eager, very happy if you send the printer and if something must be done to complete it. I'll be very glad to take someone for his time. If you supervise me, you know that you've done.
Well, I can do it myself.
You have time enough. But they have not a dime, then I'll give an additional cent. Thank you.
Yes, that's Professor Rosenwald. He had a very special relationship with the Rebbe in that he would always bring to the Rebbe every year for the Rebbe's birthday another mathematical problem that he would come up with. You bring it to the Rebbe would look at it, and the Rebbe would, in a few moments, the Rebbe would give him the answer. And he always sent to the Rebbe every one of his new papers that came in, that he wrote, that he came, all his research. And when the Rebbe gave this to him, he couldn't understand it. Now, I did see the printing of this paper. I was trying to find the link, but leading it tomorrow, I'll post it up at the beginning. I don't understand a single thing that's going on over there. Something with eigenvectors, all mathematical things. But so that's what today's show was about. The Yisroel Leib, meaning is the yahrzeit. It's supposed to stand for us. You should only have simchas, and you should continue seeing miracles from Hashem.